Chapter 6, Flying Doves. My eyes felt heavy. I slowly lifted them in fear of what I was going to see. The pain I was feeling disappeared. Above me was the dark night sky with no clouds in sight. Wait, where am I? Last thing I remembered was being captured by soldiers with putrid breath. I heard a familiar, fruity voice. Amber, come over here. I want to show you something. It was my grandmother, waving her arms for me to join her. I knew where I was. This was a memory trigger from age 15, 1 week before my grandmother passed. I attempted to hurry in her direction, but my feet moved leisurely. Something I had learned with these visions was I just had to wait them out. It saddened me to not be able to hug her. My grandmother had the best stories to tell. Most of them were old Greek myths. They had been passed down from her grandmother. We came from a long line of Greeks on my grandmother's side. I was the only blonde-haired, blue-eyed child in the family, but my biological father's side was all German. I called him the sperm donor Charles. He'd had an affair with another woman when my mother was pregnant with me. I never met him, which was fine. After their divorce, my mother had remarried a wonderful man named Ryan, who had been an amazing father. I walked over to my grandmother. This particular night was the last story she ever told me. She passed away from a terrible lung disease that had haunted her for quite some time. It was a cool autumn night, no clouds in sight, and the moonlit was alluring. Many stars were shining bright, too many to count. In the night sky, there are billions of stars, my grandmother informed me as she pointed above. Greek mythology believes that each one represents gods and goddesses. The moon represents Artemis, the goddess of the moon and hunt. She had the powers to control nature, wildlife, and disease and healing. She moved her hand to our right. Orion's belt is there, best known as the malignant hunter. She paused, moving her hand slightly. And to the right of Orion's belt is a cluster of stars called the Pleiades. How many stars do you see, Amber? 6? I asked. My grandmother leaned closer. Look closer, she whispered. I continued to focus on the cluster of stars, counting them in my head. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Suddenly, an electrical tingling ripples through my eyes. This was different from the glowing fires of flame. Within seconds, a 7th star appeared ever so brightly to the right of the 6th star. As it twinkled, I noticed the color shift from white to lavender, back to white. Wait, I see it. I see 7, I shouted. A pleased smile appeared on her face. Most people can only see 6. It takes a special person to see the 7th. I swallowed hard, unsure what to say. I hid my gifts from everyone, including my grandmother, concealing my powers inside and blending in as much as possible. Times were difficult, as my fear could always set them off. The fear of being judged would haunt me. Some say that the 7th star is lost, she said. Each star represents a sister. They call them the 7 sisters of Pleiades. The 7th sister of a 7th sister has been missing for years. Why is she lost? I asked. Legends are told that the beautiful sisters were hunters. They would follow alongside Artemis, as she was their teacher and protector. But as the girls frolicked around the fields, their beauty was so strong that the evil hunter named Orion would lust for the girls, one in particular. Her name was Electra. She was known as the 7th sister of a 7th sister. Her hair was long and dirty blonde, and her eyes were as beautiful as the blue sky. On this day, Orion seized hold of her arm in an attempt to whisk her away. His thoughts were to romance her with his stunning physique and charming wit so she would someday become his bride. She feared he would bring harm to her, as she'd heard rumors that he caused problems for some women. Electra refused to leave with him. When fear flooded through her, something happened. A tree slammed to the ground, which startled Orion. She freed herself and ran so far that she just kept going, afraid that he would take her again. When Artemis and the sisters returned to Mount Olympus, they were sad about the loss of Electra. Artemis visited her father Zeus and pleaded for help to protect the rest of the sisters. So Zeus turned them into doves to fly into the night sky as a constellation for eternity. My grandmother reached around her neck and unclipped her necklace that had a dove pendant on it. She placed it around my neck. Wait, where did Electra run off to? I asked while staring at the beautiful dove. No one knows for certain. Some say that not long after she ran away from Orion, Electra returned to Mount Olympus to find her sisters, but they were gone. Artemis explained to her what had happened to her sisters. Electra became sad. She ran to Zeus during a busy time and pleaded for him to hide her with her 6 other sisters. He was frustrated to be bothered by her. Rage flowed through him. Instead of turning her into a dove, he split her soul in 2, sending both souls to Earth to hide from Orion. She's here? Do you believe this, Nana? I asked. Believe what your heart tells you to believe. Heal your heart, hear the world, she whispered. Oddly, I didn't recall her saying those words. I must have blocked that part out. She repeated her words in a whisper as the twinkling star became brighter. Tinkling struck through my eyes like tiny electrical zaps. The brightness pierced my eyes and I squeezed them shut. Girl, wake up! I opened my eyes, and throbbing pain came from the side of my head. I was so disoriented. What happened? Where am I? Get out of the car, the soldier yelled, pulling me out of the back seat. I remember now. Let's go. The captain is waiting, said the man. I was pushed toward an abandoned warehouse. The pain in my head persisted, but there was no time to heal it. Between the almost full moon and dim lighting, I could see overgrown foliage everywhere and men in uniforms guarding the outside of the warehouse, more men than I expected. As I walked into the dark warehouse, my bare feet were cold from the uneven concrete. I could see graffiti on the walls and floors. What few windows the buildings had were cracked or missing. The smell of mildew lingered in the air, like my grandmother's basement. They took me to the back of the warehouse in a large room with minimal lighting. We approached a small wooden chair. The man forced me onto the seat. They took a rope and tied my shoulders to the backrest. Then he tied my legs to the bottom. The rope burned my ankles from them tying it too tight. Mike tapped into my thoughts. I see about 8 soldiers outside. I completely forgot about Mike following me. The hit on my head had me confused. I casually gazed around the room, counting the soldiers without making it obvious. 8 men in here, I said back to Mike telepathically. That's 16 in total. We're way outnumbered. How are we going to do this? Don't worry, I have a plan. Once I sneak past these guys, I'll let you know. Wait, I said back to Mike. The leader of the group is coming. I noticed a shadow moving toward me from the other end of the dark, creepy warehouse. The tall figure walked unhurriedly, his posture high. Behind him were 2 soldiers in uniforms, guns in their hands. As the tall man came into focus, I saw his unusual choice of clothing. I'd have thought a captain would be wearing a uniform to match his soldiers. Instead, he wore a black pinstripe suit with a red tie and black dress shoes as if he were going to a wedding. The man stepped closer, and once he was under the light, I knew exactly who he was. Holy shit, I said in my mind. My eyes widened as they focused on the captain. What? Mike questioned. Amber, what is it? The captain, as he called himself, glared at me with a haunting smile. Mike, I replied to my thought. It's Jasper. I almost had recognized my high school sweetheart, Jasper, without his baggy thug clothes and crooked visor on his head. He stood a little over 6 feet tall, his body slender, with scruffy facial hair. Both of his ears had stretched earrings. The amount of product in his dirty blonde hair made it appear as if he was wet from a shower. On his right hand was a tattoo that continued up under the sleeve. Amber, Amber, Amber. Jasper tittered with his deranged demeanor on his face as he shook his head. I heard you 2 injured a few of my men and killed one of my finest. They deserved it, I hollered. Do you know why you are here? He paused, staring straight into my eyes. Oh, wait, you don't. That's because I erased your memory, Jasper huffed. I wasn't sure what he meant by that. What do you mean erased? Jasper paced back and forth. All the soldiers stared directly at me. He ignored my question. You and I were to be together. That is how it should have been from the beginning. But you pushed me away. I patiently waited all these years until both of our powers fully awoken. Then we were going to merge for union, but Mike had to come along and ruin it for us. He continued to ramble on, sounding extremely delusional. I raged inside, my face clearly showed it. He'd avoided my questions, so I cut him off. What do you mean erasing my memory, Jasper? I asked again in a low, thick voice. My heart raced and my face was warm, probably as red as an apple. I have the power to control people's thoughts and the ability to make them forget. With your abilities of telekinesis and healing, combined with mine, we would be the most powerful set of twin flames on the planet. I stared down at the ground. He said, the most powerful set of twin flames? Why does that feel familiar, like deja vu? But since our union never happened, I came up with a better plan, making the first Diamond Child, the most powerful star child in the world. He ranted as he focused on my stomach. Diamond Child? No, this can't be. For some reason, I am not capable of controlling you, but I was able to make you forget. Forget? Where is this going? He continued. One night, while you were at the bar with your girlfriends, having a good time, you and I bumped into each other. He used his fingers to quote bumped. We started chatting to catch up on our busy lives, and we flirted. You said you felt a little lightheaded from the alcohol. I suggested you lie down. I escorted you to my car to plant my seat and... Stop, I shouted. Got this nausea feeling coming from my stomach area. My eyes felt an odd tingle. The memory he'd erased from my mind flooded back. He'd taken advantage of me when I was weak and violated me. Now I'm fumed with rage. That sick, demented man. I recalled the scar on the side of his face. You sick bastard, that's how you got that scar. I punched you. My ring cut your face when I was trying to get away from your sick ass. I remember you telling me you slipped something in my drink, making me numb and weak. You told me what you were going to do to me, rape me, then erase my memory, but I remember everything. Jasper seemed confused. It's impossible. No one can remember. Well, I can. I'm more powerful than you think. He leaned down in my face. It doesn't matter. I got what I wanted. I spit in his face. Fuck you. Jasper casually pulled out a handkerchief from his suit jacket. He wiped his face and placed it back. Then he backhanded me in the same spot the man had hit me at the hotel. The stinging shivered through me. I spit the blood onto the floor. A piece of my blonde hair hung over my right eye. I flung my head for the strand to move. Now look what you made me do, he said. Jasper leaned down, staring at my lips, and took his thumb to swipe my blood. Then he licked my blood off his thumb. Gross. Thank you for showing me how powerful you are, he goaded. The little one will be stronger than I thought. Mike was still waiting outside, filled with outrage. He heard my thoughts. He communicated in my mind. I'm going to kill... Then silent. Mike? Mike? I said in my thoughts. No answer. Something was wrong. Jasper continued to speak. Amber, join me. Be my wife. Stand beside me as I lead the toughest demonic group. Our child will help us destroy all the Star Children. We can finally be the family meant to be. Is he serious right now? Never, I yelled. Suddenly, a soldier entered the room with Mike in front of him. The man had a handgun pressed up against the side of his head. Blood dripped down the side of Mike's face from the blow. They cuffed his wrists in the front with the same cuffs I had on, so his telekinesis powers were no use. Look what we found lurking outside, boss. Jasper had that stupid grin on his face. Well, well, who do we have here? Before Jasper could say anything else, Mike decided to make a risky move. He grabbed the soldier's knife that was in his side holster with both his hands still in the cuffs. Mike swung his arms down and stabbed the man's right leg. The man leaned forward in agony. In that second, Mike grabbed the soldier's gun out of his hand and stepped behind the man. He pushed the gun up against the back of his head as the man became Mike's hostage. Now all attention was on Mike, and every soldier pointed their guns at him. Release her, Mike demanded as he pushed the gun into the man's head. Jasper didn't move or say a word, emotionless. Release her, Mike repeated. You are in no position to make demands, Jasper said. Mike seemed puzzled since he was the one holding their soldier hostage. I will shoot him if you don't let her go, Mike warned. 5 seconds of silence went by, the tension in the room magnified. Jasper scolded. Sam, how many times do I have to tell you? Cuff in the back. He shifted his attention to another soldier and nodded his head. That soldier stepped forward and aimed his gun at Sam and pulled the trigger. Bam! The bullet hit the soldier directly in the forehead. Blood splattered all over Mike's face. His hostage fell to the ground. Mike stared at his only leverage, lifeless and covered in blood. That sick bastard had killed one of his own men. This was worse than I thought. 3 men jumped on Mike. He struggled to fight them, but as long as those cuffs were on, there wasn't much he could do. Mike, I shouted. Put him over there, Jasper demanded. I wanted to watch him suffer before he dies. The men tied him up with chains on the wall. No, I shouted. Let him go. I threw my body back and forth in the chair. It was pointless since I was tied up super tight, pulling my hands against the cuffs and a stabbing pain through both of my wrists. But again, the effort was pointless. My ankles were sore from trying to wiggle out of the tight ropes. Then adrenaline kicked in and numbness hit. The exasperation and rage blinded me to the pain. You need to feel the agony I felt when you left me, Jasper snapped. That was high school, Jasper, over 8 years ago. You need to let that go. Enough, he roared as he grabbed my face, squeezing my cheeks with his tattooed hand. You have no idea of the pain you caused me. He paused and took a slow breath out. I loved you. Jasper stared into my eyes as if he was seeking my soul. He tilted his head and released his grip from my face. Mike tapped into my thoughts. What is wrong with this sick man? I contemplated what to say. Something I learned from past relationships was there was no getting through to someone when they were mentally unwell. It was a lost argument before it had begun. Please don't hurt him, Jasper. Let him go. You have me. That's all you need. 2 of the soldiers began to punch Mike in the stomach. I could feel his pain in my gut. Stop it, I screamed. They continued to punch him, now moving up into the face. No, please, stop. A great pang gripped my heart, and my eyes prickled with tears. Jasper raised his tattooed hand, and the soldiers stopped immediately. I'm going to ask you one more time. Are you going to join me, Amber? I could sense the desperation since he was unable to control me like his minions. Your many deceptions could never convince me to join sides with you ever, and no mind control or brainwashing will work on me. Let me make myself clear. The answer is no, I declared. Jasper slowly took off his jacket and handed it to the soldier. He rolled up his sleeve, and on his arm was an entire sleeve of tattoos with a scorpion in the center. Then he rolled up the other sleeve, and that arm was also covered with tattoos. On the left arm appeared to be a white bull with a bow and arrow pointing at its head. Beside that was a dove in a cage. Fine. His blood is on you, Jasper said as he took a swing at Mike's face, causing more agony. He then took his right fist and hit him in the ribs. Then his left swung the same motions. He continued to punch him as if Mike was a punching bag. My eyes filled up with heat from so much pent-up anger. I could feel the flames burning. Boss? One of the soldiers said, trying to get the captain's attention. He must haven't noticed the glowing. I wasn't sure how much more Mike could take. His face was all bloody, and he was moaning in agony. My body ached from the empath abilities, and my heart hurt from watching the love of my life in pain. I couldn't stand watching this. I continued to shout, my eyes burned, steaming tears rolling down my cheeks, feeling completely defeated because of my careless plan. This was all my fault. He was suffering because of me. The ground shook. The soldiers panicked as if an earthquake were happening. My powers were pushing through these cuffs. Jasper turned around and we locked eyes. The warmth of fire flowing through my eyes lit up the room. He looked back at Mike, and now his were shining a bright blue. Jasper stepped in my direction, but suddenly, bang.